Oh my God.
Who's
going to be a server?
Then we can play some water while I'm up. All right, we are live.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being here. It is 5:31 on Tuesday, June 6, 2023. And I now call to order the City College Place City Council Workshop. Sherry, will you please take roll call?
Mayor
Who's
Hernandez,
present?
Councilmember Jessup,
Present.
Councilmember Cleveland,
Present.
Councilmember Espinoza,
Present.
Councilmember Peterson,
Present.
Councilmember Williams,
Present.
Councilmember Sherman,
Present.
and Councilmember Boyle. Present. We do have a quorum.
Great, thank you very much. Will you all please join me in the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. It's now time for public comment. If anybody would like to speak on something that is not on the agenda, now would be the time. Sherry, did anyone submit a comment ahead? Okay.
No.
Would there be anybody in virtual or actual attendance that would like to speak at this time? Okay, then let's move on to the workshop topics. We have 3 workshop topics tonight. No action will be taken. First is Ms. Riggle and Mr. Nowland will give a presentation on the Common Roots Land Trust. Welcome.
Thank you.
You can step up in the front chair.
So
for
we
here.
can't see the slides from these chairs.
Oh, you can't?
So
Okay.
does it make more sense for us to sit?
Wherever you're comfortable at.
What do you want to do? I can see the slide from here, but.
I'm good. I'm good at winging it.
Okay.
You go home and look on Zoom.
I'll sit here, but I'm gonna just get back, just so I can like see the slide.
You just have to sit on the
Don't give her any idea.
Oh, we're glad you guys can see it. That's perfect.
Hi,
Okay, no,
everyone.
this is great.
I want to say I'm a proud College Place resident myself. I love our town. I'm so happy to be here. And I got involved with Common Roots because of my involvement in the affordable housing study that was done by Community Council in 2019. If you haven't read it, I really encourage you to read it. It's stunning. And after that, I figured I've been harping about housing for years now because I'm the executive director at Valley Residential Services. We serve very low income people with the 19th largest employer in Walla Walla County. And most of our employees are fairly low income as well. So I have a burden for our staff and the clients that we support. And if you know me, you know, I just jump in with both feet. And if there's a problem, we've got to fix it. So that's when I got involved with the subcommittees that rolled off of the community council study and did the new solutions one, which eventually helped form Common Roots Housing Trust. So that's what I'm here for tonight. And I also wanted to introduce our brand new executive director, Miles Allen, and he can tell you why he's involved and his passion for it.
Good evening, council members and staff. My name is Miles Allen. Really honored to be the incoming executive director of Common Roots Housing Trust. I come to this work from a background in education, housing advocacy, and affordable housing program development for youth and adults and seniors. And most recently, my past work was in the permanent preservation of affordable mobile home parks as limited equity housing cooperatives. I've since shifted my interest to community land trusts work, and I'm really excited to be joining the community of College Place and Walla Walla and Columbia County to implement this important work. So
Welcome.
thanks for having us.
And then we have Mr. Mike Rizzatello, who's also a board member for Common Roots. You wanna
Yeah,
say anything about that?
yeah, so this has been really important implementation work coming out of the Community Council Affordable Housing Study. And we've made a lot of headway over the last several years, getting the 501c3, so we actually do have that now, which was a big lift. And then also fundraising to get our first executive director. And now we're getting to the point now of getting to where we're trying to acquire first property and get in development stages as well. So you'll see that as we get further into this presentation, so.
And then Ms. Trish Wilder, who comes to this work for personal reasons and is probably one of the more powerful presenters. If you've been hearing about Trish, she's becoming famous. Community for her work on housing. So tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, well, thanks. I mean, we'll be here, right, just me, everyone. Hi. I graduated from high school in 1972, years ago. And when I did, my first job, I was a waitress at the Pancake House. And at that time, my first apartment, the rent for my first apartment took 4% of my income. After working the better part of my life and retiring, now my rent takes 54% of my income. And that's why I'm getting involved, because this is unsustainable, not just for me, but for so many people I know, seniors, disabled people, and just people who are working to make a living. Yeah, that's why I'm involved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. So without further ado, let's talk about Common Roots Housing Trust. Our community has a unique opportunity to address our region's affordable housing crisis. And by our region, we're talking Columbia and Walla Walla counties and the Milk Free Water area. So we're trying to create permanently affordable homes through the development of a community land trust, which is also called a CLT for short. So in Walla Walla County, 37% of households paying rent and mortgages live in homes they can't afford. Renters in Walla Walla County face housing cost burdens at greater rates than homeowners. Approximately 52% of renters in the county live in homes they can't afford. That's 52%. Okay. According to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, a home is affordable when housing costs do not exceed 30% of a household's pre-tax income. We're very concerned about how our region's affordable homes crisis is affecting kids who go to school here, workers who work here, and seniors who retire here.
Our region's first community land trust, Common Roots Housing Trust, seeks to meet the housing needs of low to moderate income households, those earning 50 to 100% of the area median income. Those households are typically underserved by government supported housing programs such as Section 8 housing vouchers and project-based rental assistance, because those resources target extremely low income households. Market rate homes are also out of reach for low and moderate income households because housing costs are increasingly higher than their incomes can afford. For example, from 2009 to 2021, area median income in Walla Walla County increased by 25%, while median home price increased by 109%. As the median home price continues to increase, there are very few options for first-time home buyers who typically buy homes at the less expensive end of the housing market. With fewer affordable homeownership opportunities, more community members are forced into the rental market, and renters tend to stay in their units longer because there are no other options. As a result, there is increased pressure on local rental market, where prices continue to rise well above average wage increases, and vacancy rates are now hovering around 1%. Community land trusts are a crucial solution to the crisis because they create affordable homeownership opportunities by permanently preserving land in trust and offering homes that maintain affordability in perpetuity. Community land trusts are place-based nonprofits led by a local membership of residents, homeowners, and stakeholders who engage in organizational governance to guide land use decisions. And in this slide, we demonstrate the local affordability gap. Community land trusts help close the affordability gap between what people earning low and moderate incomes can afford to pay for a home and what it costs to buy a home in today's market. And as you can see, what low to moderate income buyers can afford is between 100 and 305,000. And cost to build these days in our market is 250 to 350,000, and to buy 300 to 500,000.
Next slide, please. So how does a community land trust close that affordability? In community land trust, the residents purchase the homes on top of the land, and the community land trust owns the land beneath that. The community land trust raises money, subsidies to lower the home prices so that working class people can afford to buy the homes and spend no more than 1/3 of their monthly income on their monthly home payments. The community land trust connects home buyers with a bank where they can get a mortgage to purchase the home on top of the land, just like another home on the market. The community land trust charges the homeowners a modest monthly ground lease, which helps to sustain the organization. Next slide, please. This ground lease gives the homeowners exclusive use of the land beneath their homes and lays out their responsibilities for taking care of the land. It lasts for 99 years and it's renewable and inheritable. The ground lease also restricts the resale price of the community land trust homes so that they remain permanently affordable to generations of working class people. The community land trust also provides financial counseling to residents, and this is a very important part of the community land trust model. So this helps residents support their financial well-being, helps them keep them in their homes, and prevents them from foreclosing on their homes. So this is very interesting that community land trust homeowners have far lower foreclosure rates compared to conventional homeowners. Less than 1% of community land trust homeowners foreclose on their homes. And before I turn it back over to Miles, I want to say we actually have a 0% vacancy rate in studio and 1-bedroom apartments in Lowell. Pretty shocking. So you can get a feel for that.
Next slide. Here is an example of how Common Roots will work in a region. Take a 4-person family here in Walla Walla County that has one breadwinner who works as a carpenter and earned just over $48,000 in 2022. For that family, an affordable monthly house payment, no more than 33% of their monthly income at the time of purchase, is $1,330. At the monthly payment, an affordable mortgage is $162,335. That family would get a regular mortgage of $162,335 to buy a Common Roots home. But the cost to build the 3-bedroom home they would live in is approximately $285,000. If you subtract the affordable price for the family from the cost of the home, you get $122,665. This is the amount that Common Roots would have to raise to make the home affordable for this family. I also want to emphasize that the subsidy is largely inherent in the land that the land trust owns and retains in trust perpetuity. In exchange for buying a home at below market price, the family agrees to limit the price they can sell down the road, which is through a deed restriction. Next slide.
If and when this family chooses to sell their home, the resale price of their home will be limited according to Common Roots resale formula. This formula gives the selling family a fair return on their investment while giving the next working class home buyers access to the home at an affordable price. Next slide, please. Here you can see the equity that this family could build on their Common Roots home over 10 years. While walking away with more money than they originally paid for the home, this family pays the home's affordability forward to the next working class family who wants to buy it. Limiting the resale price of Common Roots homes guarantees that the homes remain permanently affordable over generations. In addition, that initial subsidy of $122,665 stays with the home when the family sells the home, so that Common Roots does not have to raise money to help subsequent buyers of the home to buy it.
Next slide, please. To recap, here's how Common Roots will work. Common Roots will lower the price of the home when the first working class family buys it. Common Roots will restrict the price that the home can be sold for when the family chooses to sell. Common Roots will follow these steps with every home sale and resale so that the home remains permanently affordable for working class people. Common Roots will provide permanently affordable home ownership opportunities to people earning low incomes or incomes between 50 and 80% area median income. We also intend to provide some home ownership opportunities to people earning moderate incomes, though our primary focus will be housing people with low incomes. Next slide, please. Here's a chart showing the low incomes and moderate income, how low and moderate incomes are determined. We use income from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. You can see here that the classification as low or moderate income depends on the size of the household. Low and moderate income households can afford to pay anywhere from $100,000 to $305,000 on a mortgage. There are very few safe quality homes in that price range in our local market. In 2022, the median sale price in Walla Walla County was $422,900. This is the affordability gap that Common Roots seeks to address.
While Common Roots does not yet have any homes, we hope to start building homes within the next couple of years. We plan to build high-quality, energy-efficient homes in scattered sites that are close to community resources. We also plan to develop different sized homes to meet diverse people's housing needs. That means we will build homes with 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, as well as homes that are accessible to people with physical disabilities. Next slide, please. Here's a recap of how Common Roots homeownership will work. Common Roots residents will achieve housing stability, earn equity, enjoy the pride of homeownership, and put down roots in the community. By investing in residents, their homes, and the land beneath them, Common Roots will help to stabilize our region's economy and sustain its distinctive, vibrant character. For the past 3.5 years, volunteer community members with the backbone support of Community Council and Blue Mountain Action Council, as well as regional and national community land trust consultants, have been establishing the organizational foundations of Common Roots. We're very proud that this year Common Roots became an independent nonprofit organization and raised enough money to hire our first executive director. Common Roots establishment puts into action a key recommendation from the Community Council's Affordable Housing Study and Walla Walla County's 5-year housing plan, and is also supported by the Walla Walla County Council on Housing. In addition, the establishment of a community land trust that meets low and moderate income households' housing needs aligns with the priorities identified through Walla Walla County's 2019 through 2023 Community Health Improvement Plan.
Common Roots would like to form a long-term partnership with the City of College Place in providing permanently affordable homeownership opportunities for the working families that sustain our community. We are very grateful that the city has made an initial investment in supporting our organizational operations through 2023 community grant program, the community grant program, and that the city has supported our 2023 federal appropriations request for funding to purchase a parcel of land here in College Place for our first permanently affordable housing development. We are currently working through a grant with the Department of Commerce Rural Technical Assistance Program to submit a housing trust fund application to help fund this first development. The housing trust fund scoring is favorable to applicants who demonstrate strong local government contributions. Common Roots would like to request that the City of College Place consider donating utility, impact, and permitting fees when we begin the development process in the city. Such a partnership would be a shared investment in stabilizing and strengthening the College Place community. Additionally, we seek to partner with local government all around our region to access low-cost surplus land, grant and loan dollars for housing development, support and partnering in inclusionary zoning projects, among other support to help promote new affordable development as well as affordable housing preservation.
We would like to thank you for having us here today. This is a passion of ours, as you can imagine. I believe we may have people on Zoom. Maybe Rachel Elfenbein, who has served as our first transitional executive director, who is extremely knowledgeable about this subject material. I don't know about Joyce Smith, if she's on, who is another board member for Common Roots. We have an exceptionally good and passionate board. And we believe in this project because we're talking about impacting low and moderate families, working class families. I know all of us can think of somebody who couldn't move to town because of our housing crisis and the affordability. I'm thankful that you have us here and very grateful. We're open to any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. So we're gonna go to council members to open up for questions. Councilmember Jessup.
I have lots, but I'll ask only a couple.
Take your time.
Thank you very much. This is just trying to learn more about your Common Roots. So, you know, you spoke of qualified applicants and that kind of stuff, like who are qualified applicants and what's it based on?
Okay, so you saw our low to moderate income,
For household income, yes.
right? And then the homeowner, the potential homeowner has to qualify for a bank loan. So they have to have decent credit enough to qualify for a bank loan. There'll be an application process, so we will be accepting applications when we have land and are planning on building.
So it's basically you're just artificially capping the price of the home.
Correct.
And then the subsidies are from where?
The main subsidy, as he said, is because they don't have to pay for the cost of the land, they just pay for the home on top of the land.
No, where does your subsidies come from to do that? I'm
Our
sorry.
subsidies, well, they're, basically, we've been writing grant applications. And as he said, we're gonna be working on a Department of Commerce grant.
Yeah,
And-
so the Housing Trust Fund has a set aside for affordable homeownership.
Yeah.
It's the biggest pool of affordable housing dollars available in the state of Washington, certainly for affordable homeownership. And we received a grant that's called Rural Technical Assistance from the Department of Commerce, where experts in the community land trust development world are literally walking me through step by step of the application, as well as providing us with a no-cost architect who's experienced in this work. So pretty great opportunity to walk into as a new director of a land trust. But yeah, it's pretty awesome for our first development to have that kind of support. That will fund the construction side. That can also reimburse other costs like pre-development fees and other like contracted services that we need throughout the process. But we absolutely have to have that land secured before moving forward. So that's step one.
Yeah.
Is securing the land. And that'll be step one in every development process that we have, is ideally getting land donated or at like very reduced costs from like surplus local government or churches or private owners.
There's also private donations
Correct.
that can make a big chunk of the subsidies go away. I think it was in Chelan that their first development, they developed 3, I think, units was the first development. And all of the subsidy came from private donations within their community.
We also are in the last phases of approval on a large grant that was written. We will find out about that this summer. So we're really hoping, fingers crossed, that we will qualify for that and be granted that, because that's a substantial chunk of money.
Yeah, what a time such as this, right, in this valley with the housing. So thank you for your passion with that.
Councilmember Cleveland.
I'm curious about, So you buy the land, you build the house, you sell the house, the land stays in the trust. Who pays the property taxes on the land? Is it the homeowner or is it the trust?
The trust,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So the,
For a second there, sorry, excuse me, just to add on to answer that question, I'm Rachel Elfenbein, and as Nancy mentioned, I've been working as the interim executive director before Miles came on. So commonly what community land trusts do is negotiate with local tax authorities, because we are nonprofits, to be tax exempt when it comes to property taxes. So the homeowner would pay the taxes on the home. And we are hoping to have such conversations with their local tax authorities so that we can be exempt from paying local property taxes, because that really also helps to bring our operating costs down.
That's just on the land, correct? So
Yeah, just on the land.
just on the land.
Yeah.
Okay. So the structure is paid by the homeowner. Okay.
Yes.
all right. Well, it seems like a great initiative, great way to try to address rising and out of control housing prices. Are there, I'm kind of asking, are there any I guess concerns or secondary effects that are sometimes considered negative when this kind of thing is attempted? Does this, I'm just wondering, are there any things that you guys are aware of that make this maybe not the greatest of ideas? No, there's pros and cons always, but I'm just wondering, dirty laundry about this.
I think that when you're dealing with neighborhoods, there might be neighbors that talk about things. I mean, I've been working with people that are very low income in housing for 40 years, and I see this as having minimal effects, really. I mean, you're not talking about people who are extremely low income. We're not talking about people who don't want to keep up their property. There's also such an infrastructure with the Community Land Trust. There's help if they're having financial problems. There's help if things are getting a little bit negative on their property. I mean, there's help available, and the Community Land Trust job is to make sure that those homeowners can keep up with everything, amongst other things. So I really see this as minimal challenging in the community.
Stewardship, the stewardship of the properties is a big part of what the administration of the Community Land Trust takes over, and we make sure that, you know, people are doing what they need to do to keep the property in good shape, because, you know, it's to everyone's benefit.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The work that I did, converting mobile home parks into housing co-ops is similar, where you're asking people to step up and be volunteer voting members of the organization. So anyone who's a resident will actually be a voting member of Common Roots, which means that there's a certain level of civic responsibility as well. That requires training from us, and that requires volunteer time from them. And then, yeah, I've talked to other land trusts who've been around it. I'm specifically thinking of one in New Mexico that's been around for 30 years, that over time has seen some challenges assuring that homes are maintained and improved so that they can resell. However, a lot of fixes to the model have occurred since the 90s when that land trust was formed, to where there's incentives that we can build, that we plan to build into our resale formula for resident members to maintain and repair their home, including a set aside fund to make sure that there's adequate capital dollars to make those repairs, and then incentives to do upgrades to the roof and other improvements to the home. So yeah, there's definitely challenges, and there's a lot of tweaks that have been made over time, and we plan to continue to address those challenges head on.
Thank you.
And if I could add to a response to the council member's question, I think one key concern that we have, and I think Miles and Nancy have alluded to this, is right now, we're completely grant funded. And this is, most community land trusts rely heavily on grant funding. So of course, it depends on the generosity of donors and grantors. One thing that is unique that the Community Land Trust does that is quite different from most other housing nonprofit organizations, which Miles talked a little bit about, is its membership structure. So membership will be open to anyone who lives in the region that Common Roots serves. And we will have a tripartite board governance model where public sector representatives will have 1/3 of the board member seats. General community members will have 1/3 of the board member seats, and then low-income residents or potential future residents at this point in Common Roots will have seats, and everyone is welcomed. Every community member in the community is welcome to join the organization, and this helps to create kind of a general kind of community ownership of the organization, which is a bit different from how most nonprofit organizations work, so that the community really feels like this is the community's project as well. And I think that kind of buy-in and ownership also helps to sustain the organization. Membership fees do bring in some income to sustain the organization, but by and large, community land trusts depend on broad community support. So, this is something that we've been really working on, reaching out to the community, like reaching out to College Place City Council tonight, and really helping to generate that support as we build the organization.
I hope we see you at your farmer's market then.
Councilmember Espinosa.
Yes, thank you. I think that this is a great initiative for our community because I am in the line of work of real estate, and I realize that a lot of things are happening in our community, which is making the affordability factor less affordable to a lot of families here in the area. So I think this is a great initiative. And one question that I have is, what are the guardrails that are going to be put in place so that this program is not abused by users and we truly see the benefit on the people that need it the most?
Very good question. How do we answer that?
I can go ahead and give a start. Thank you, Councilmember Espinosa, for your question. So everyone who applies for a Common Roots home and wants to be considered to buy the home, there is going to be an application fee and an application process. They're going to have to go first through like a workshop where we explain Common Roots, the organization, what a community land trust is, and what are the stewardship responsibilities, how the community land trust works. They do have to qualify, like Nancy and Miles said, for a conventional home loan. So they have to go through that process with the bank as well. The ground lease is a legal document that both the community land trust ourselves and the home buyers will sign. And it lays out the legal responsibilities of the homeowners. It is legally enforceable then as well. But the community land trust staff does a lot, and this is, from experience, community land trusts across the country do this. They do a lot to support the homeowners so that there are issues, they're addressed kind of head on with the homeowners before things get out of control.
What could those issues be, Rachel?
Like was discussed, maybe not maintenance of the land, maybe kind of nuisance issues, with neighbors, things like that. Issues maybe that one of the homeowners loses a job, is unemployed, and is concerned about foreclosure. And so there's a lot of support that's given by the Community Land Trust. We've been working with a consultant who works part-time supporting community land trusts to build up, and the other part of the time she's the housing director of the community land trust in Orcas Island. And she said most of their homeowners, because I think they have well over 100 homeowner households because they've been around since the 1990s. Most of their homeowners work in the tourism industry. And when the pandemic hit, you know, as we know, with the tourism industry, almost everything shut down. So there was real concern about what's going to happen to their homeowners and what's going to happen to their homes, and concern on the community land trust side if they foreclose. And so their staff worked really hard with the homeowners to come up with payment plans so that they could be whole, but also not experience tremendous economic difficulty because they have to pay like their monthly housing payments. So these are things, you know, that are done on a case-by-case basis. But the guardrails are also legal as well. Like I said, in the legal document, which is the ground lease, which lays out the responsibilities, and Common Roots will explain the ground lease to the home buyers. And then we will also connect the home buyers to independent counsel to have independent legal explanation of what the ground lease entails, so that they're very clear about what the responsibilities are that they need to abide by.
Yeah, again, I think it's a wonderful program. I just would like to understand better. Maybe over time, I need to read a little more as far as, you know, making the good use of the program to really benefit those that need it the most, and not just you know, have people abuse or take advantage of a program that I think could counterbalance the supply for real estate in our economy, especially for families that need it most.
To put a personal spin on that, I have a staff person at VRS that is waiting in the wings for Common Roots to start. And I would trust him with my life as far as being a wonderful homeowner. I mean, I've worked with him for years and years. So those are the kind of people that we're talking about, people that have pride in their home ownership. It's not going to be people that are homeless and find a home. And yeah, there's.
Nancy, if I could kind of jump in a minute there. I think some of what you might be concerned about, Councilman Espinoza, is that people might try to flip these homes or make a profit on them or use them for VRBOs or rent them out for more than their payment is. And that's built into the ground lease. Those kind of ground rules are built into the ground lease where they can't do things like that. And the stewardship that the nonprofit land trust would provide would keep that from happening.
Thank you.
Councilmember Peterson.
You know, it really just comes down to what the problem is in our valley, and it's three things: lots, and lots. You know, it's so I know in other communities an hour away, they, you know, they look out and they say, well, let's just put 700 homes in there and it's done. Over here, a lot of land restriction, and so you know, we look up at the wheat fields and those water rights and all kinds of other issues that are in there as far as breaking any of that up or how you do this. So that's your challenge on it, as you go back to the beginning as far as cities and other areas donating the land, the excess land or not, because everyone's looking for land. This is a program, I understand wanting to build new homes, energy efficiency and et cetera, any consideration of remodel of existing, because I see where neighborhoods would perhaps be hyper acceptive of that also. What were your thoughts on that? Just quickly.
It's definitely part of a CLT model to do remodeling. And we have learned a lot about affordable housing. That's one of the things that is really prevalent, is that we need to preserve our existing home stock. So yes,
Yeah,
there is.
it's not excluded, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we can do.
Right, definitely. And obviously, I think we've already touched on this. There's some unique agreements here. People cannot take out reverse mortgages. People cannot.
Correct.
These are, so the whole idea that somebody could take, you know, there, obviously there's some guardrails there, use that phrase again, for how these houses can be understand. So Anyway, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I want to speak to the preservation stuff. That's the work that I was doing prior to arriving here was preserving manufactured housing communities,
Mhm.
specifically as resident-owned co-ops. And that approach can be done with the community land trust model as well, where instead of a co-op owning the land under the mobile home park and then preserving it in perpetuity, the community land trust would preserve that
Yeah.
land, own that land, and then be the leaseor of the land to the mobile home owner. And would be responsible for, making the upgrades and the improvements, because mobile home parks are the number one form of affordable home ownership in this country. And as you know, like, there's a lot of them around, and that's a whole nother conversation, and it's a whole nother direction that we may or may not take this program. Right now, the priority is to get this first development going, get that traction and that housing trust fund application, approved, so that we can then explore these other ideas of, I'm really interested in like downtown preservation of old buildings, and certainly preservation to support folks that may be facing foreclosure and to support them in getting out of that and adding that land to the land trust portfolio. So there's a whole array of ways that land trust can function. That's like a much broader conversation that, we can have another time, but yeah, very exciting
That's
stuff.
good. Yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Williams?
I have two questions. I'm excited about this. Are there any other housing land trusts in the area? I'm familiar with the Blue Mountain Land Trust, but they don't deal with housing. So are you the first?
We are the first in Eastern Washington.
Oh, wow.
Well, there
And-
is Trios in Tri-Cities, Nancy. Trios is in Tri-Cities, and then Moscow, of course, that's Idaho, but Moscow, Idaho has a up and coming community land trust. There's a total of, I think it's 26 community land trusts in the state of Washington. There's 950 homes, I think, in land trusts in the state of Washington. And those have served around 1,200 families between resales and so forth. So it's not a new concept. It's just new to us in Walla Walla Valley.
Well, I appreciate you bringing it here. My second question is, and I'm kind of struggling with how exactly to say this, so if I'm not quite right, feel free to correct me, but I expect that you'll have many, many applications, and obviously people have to meet the certain limits of, credit worthiness, etc. But are there, what are you going to use to prioritize applications? Are there certain things that you're trying to support, like families with children or retired people, or how are you going to prioritize the applications that you get?
I believe that's to be determined. We need to follow, first of all, the fair housing, rules of the federal government. So that's like first and foremost. There's a number of ways we could do it. It could be a wait list. It could be a first come, first serve. But I believe we are yet to determine how our application pool and who would be served first will work. So
I suppose that there will
yeah,
also be-
that's to be determined, but as long as we're making sure that there's equal opportunity housing for those in our pool, I think that we'll come up with some way to organize the applicant pool. Yeah.
Joy and I,
If I can just add to that, so we're going to be building homes of different sizes. So one of the criteria, not just like that you qualify for the conventional mortgage, and that you've been pre-approved by the bank, and then you paid the application fee and attended like the Common Roots workshop. But it also has to do with your household size matching the home size. So if there's like a one-person household and they want to apply, if we have our first home is a 3-bedroom home, they wouldn't they wouldn't qualify for that home, because we want to make sure that we are going to build homes of different sizes to meet different households, different needs, but we don't want to then, preclude a household of 3 or 4 people from accessing that home in order to house a 1-person household. So it will have to do with household size as well. And so far, we've started drafting those policies. They have yet to be approved, but following models that other community land trusts have used, which has to do with when folks apply and being ready when the home comes on the market. But having had to go through all these specific steps, kind of those guardrails that we talked about, to make sure that they're ready to buy the home.
Awesome, thank you.
Councilmember Sherman?
This is exciting. I can't remember, Nancy might be able to tell me, we heard about this a few years ago. Was it an exchange club when this was like an idea?
Yeah.
So this is really exciting to see how far, and of course it's, if Nancy gets a bee in her bonnet, it's gonna happen. So my question is, you talk about a land, like the lease fee or something that they would pay to the organization. Is that the price of that going to, or the cost of that? I assume it's, again, depending on all sorts of different things, like the size of the property and whatever, but would that also be factored into the 30% or whatever they're using to qualify?
Yeah, that is maintained as like a very, very low fee, right? I think right now we have it at $50.
Oh, I see. Okay, okay.
But it certainly is factored in as well. And that's to be determined. There's like work to do on that end.
Sure.
But right now, that's
Okay.
a pretty standard monthly fee. It ensures a little bit of buy-in each month. And the homeowners will also be required to have a maintenance reserve set aside each month as well. And all of that would be factored into that, like 33%, to assure that they were paying a monthly total rate that fits that affordability requirement, 1/3 of their total income. Yeah.
My other question is kind of opposite of what other people are asking. It feels like, what if their income is like grows exponentially somehow? So now they wouldn't qualify if they applied now, but they're in. So I would assume that that would be fine. And that's not gonna be one of those ground rules of now you've waged out.
Yep, correct.
Thank you.
So she mentioned that the Chelan developments that they've done. Oh, I know she didn't, I just decided to jump in.
Councilmember Boyle.
So the Chelan Housing Trust has a couple different setups. So they have a couple individual lots, and then they also have townhouse structures. Are you guys looking at, because you guys keep talking about community and developments, and are you guys only looking at land plots that will house multiple homes? Are you guys looking at doing townhouse style connected housing? What, or is that all still TBD?
It's to be determined, but I'd say this board is very open to any possibilities.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not gonna turn away any opportunity to explore like surplus land purchase, reduced cost surplus land purchase. The business plan is lined out like single family duplex styles for our first big housing trust fund application, because those tend to be more successful on your first go. But by all means, like, we realize that the problem is huge and that there's a need for dense housing. And there's also, like we said before, to Councilmember Peterson's question, there's a whole variety of ways that we can approach land trust housing. That could be homeownership, but it could also be rental, it could also be manufactured housing, multifamily, duplex, quadplex, multiplex. Buying, working with single family homeowners who are in foreclosure, or folks who are looking to buy and then going in on a purchase with them. So we're basically open to all of the possibilities, but it's like land first, right? So, and how that land is zoned will, to build will be a huge determinant on what we apply to build for.
Okay. Thank you.
I have two questions, and you probably I'll just ask my questions. I'm not making assumptions. Okay. Do you have an idea of what percentage of homeowners or people currently looking to become homeowners would fit this demographic that qualifies for your program or for the Common Roots Housing Trust program?
Good question. Rachel, have we done any studies on that?
There are actually numbers of how many households, say in Walla Walla County, are in the 50 to 80% area median income range. We can't say for sure how many want to apply for Common Roots homeownership, you know, if they know of the opportunity and will apply out of that whole pool of 50 of households that are earning 50 to 80% area median income. So yeah, at this point, it's hard to say, but we could totally provide numbers of how many households are earning 50 to 80% area median income in the county, for example.
And we have the community outreach in Waitsburg and College Place of Milton Freewater, and incredible turnouts of people who are anxious for us to have homes to offer them. So we know that we're going to have a good sized pool of people who will probably apply for our homes.
Okay, yeah, yeah, I was just wondering, maybe if like agent said, 20% of people who come to me don't qualify for area current prices or something like that, but I was just asking. Second question is, coming from the finance world, how difficult is it gonna be for them to get a mortgage on just the structure?
There are banks who do CLT loans on a regular basis.
Okay,
We've actually done some work with Vanderbilt Bank already to talk about that at least, and they're open to that.
Yeah.
We actually had at our last training meeting, Norma, we had 7 banks who are willing in the state of Washington to work with CLTs, and those included Banner Bank and of course our own Baker Boyer, Umpqua and WaFed.
that's
Yeah.
exciting.
Excellent.
Yeah, this is like really good news, and this goes along with the question about, are there other CLTs doing this work? Like, there's 26 in the state of Washington. We're not doing this alone, and this is a growing movement in the state. Where I was previously living in New Mexico, there's one community land trust. Granted, it's this historic one in Albuquerque, and it's done like amazing work, but the ecosystem for developing land trust housing and the bank product that goes along with it is like really rich in Washington state.
I
Yeah.
spoke out of turn by saying there wasn't any in Eastern Washington. I forgot about Chelan and Wenatchee. Yeah, but nothing in Spokane here.
I do that all the time too. The place was the first, well, no,
There's nothing in Spokane.
so there you go.
Amazing.
Nothing in Spokane proper prior to 2000. December and March.
Well, it's really, Roy, that's really great news, to know that regional area banks, would be willing to get into that market because, so obviously more difficult when you start going to lenders outside your area because they don't understand your area, much less, what it would take the people in this land trust, right? So I think that's excellent news.
I think there was recently a training, an online training for appraisers and real estate agents also to learn about how to work with community land trusts and the requirements, because those are a little different too. There has to be, people have to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that there's training that they can take, and same for the realtors, for the appraisers and the bankers.
Yeah, so for lack of a better word, the infrastructure is really being, it's there, right? We just gotta bring it to our area and get it solidified.
Yes.
Or you're working on it already, actually here in our area. Did you have something else to say, Councilmember Pearson?
I think this is really neat. This is one of these things where we're all looking for that single thing we can do to fix this problem, you know what I mean? And it's like, what is it gonna be? Is it, we're rezoning, where we're gonna go to Olympia and we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And there is no single issue to fix this, but this is the step That's it's gonna take, a village type of thing. And this is it. It's really exciting because I think this is where we start picking off the ones and twos and threes. It's not that we're building in a 700 unit or whatever, 200, nobody's got that nobody's got that commitment. But this is something that it is exciting. This is, it's gonna be lots of little pieces that are gonna help us. It's not gonna solve it. But it's gonna take the pain off of it. And I think that's really, commendable. Thank you.
Thank you. And it doesn't go away. Like, that's one of the reasons a couple of reasons I'm super passionate about this work is that it's permanent. Right? It permanently preserves these homes as affordable forever, 99-year lease, renewable, et cetera. And it's controlled by the very community members that are benefiting from it and who are adjacent to it. To the developments, as well as the folks in government and nonprofit leadership. Those are the folks who I'm going to be doing the outreach to join as members and to recruit as potential board members for the organization. So those two things are what excites me about this work.
Yeah.
And I think the councilman really nailed it, is that it's not a one and done program. You're gonna take maybe $1,000 investment and it's going to for perpetuity. Where if you subsidize someone with a down payment assistance, that's one and done. Doesn't help the next person who comes along to buy that house. So that's where the community land trust model, for me as a taxpayer, really resonates.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, Councilmember Jessup,
sorry.
and then Ms. Colwell.
My question is are there any incentives for property owners to transfer this land into the trust, like with the preservation of natural resources, landowners can get paid to not develop those land. Do you know if there's anything like that, or?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was on a call the other day. There's a group with the Northwest Community Land Trust Coalition that's advocacy in Olympia to support legislation such as tax incentives. The co-op work I was doing there was a real estate excess tax exemption for those transferring lands, and I'm tasked to do some homework around that. So I don't have an answer. Maybe somebody else here does, but it's possible that there is, or that there will be a REIT exemption for those transferring lands, and then they would certainly get a tax write-off for that donation to a 501c3. But I'm very curious to explore what other ways we can incentivize folks to donate.
Well, and another avenue might be with the capital gains tax that now that's been upheld. Have, some sort of exemption if it goes into a land trust or.
When you ask that first question, I wonder if the people who are now gonna be affected by the capital gains might consider.
I will say there is an exemption for REIT too, so that is one option.
Okay.
Another option, and this one involved legal accounting help on this one, but I do know for land trusts and stuff, there also is exemptions for investments within opportunity zones. And about 90% of college places have federal opportunity zones, so everything north of Lamperti is, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilmember Jessup.
Thanks again. How does this affect or doesn't affect, this might be a question from my real estate friend, comps in the area? So let's say I have a home that I'm reselling, and then does the housing trust home go into those comps? So I have a home that's $350,000, the home next to me is limited at 162.
Yeah.
So does that go into my resale comp?
Yeah, that came up at the recent Northwest Community Land Trust Conference, that there's been rumors for decades that it adversely affects adjacent property values, and it's been debunked. It's just not the case. I don't have a study that I can quote on that, but I can certainly follow up with you because I think it's like super interesting.
How do you know it's debunked?
I
Sorry.
heard that as well,
Well-
too, that affordable housing, actually, it either increases the value of surrounding properties or it doesn't affect it. In general, that's the finding everywhere.
Yeah, I can follow up with you on the study that was referenced. It was basically countering this myth that community land trust specifically, like single family homes, for example, in a neighborhood of other, standard market rate homes,
Yeah.
devalues those adjacent homes, and that's just simply never been the case. But I'd be happy to follow up with you, with that, the actual study that was.
Yeah, I just need to learn how to comp work. Is it apples to apples, or does it kind of into account, that kind of thing, so.
It may not be a comp.
Yeah, that's fine, I just don't know.
It's a good question.
What's the, somebody talking about the guardrails, what's guardrails when the grant money runs out?
When the grant money runs out, it slows down development, but the grant money is not necessary to maintain the program forward. To maintain the program forward, we use development fees and membership fees and application fees to pay for at least the staff to do the technical assistance on how to engage with your HOA and how to maintain your home. Certainly if there were like zero grant dollars, that would like make our jobs very, very difficult.
So that's.
But there are.
Grant money's, you said?
Yes, but there are fees that we use built into the model, like I listed off, that are designed to sustain staff to some degree. It's not a perfect solution. I would like to see more ways to like sustain these programs without dependence on like heavy grant funding. And a big part of that is, at some point, do we want to be the primary developer and be gaining, 100% of those development fees, potentially accessing part of a loan fee, and certainly things like the ground lease, the membership fee, you add them up, and those are designed to sustain.
The fees of the homeowner.
Yes, the ground lease is one fee that the homeowner incurs. A membership fee is something that any member in the community would pay annually.
Yeah, so I'm wondering on the numbers, if, as you start thinking about sustainability. So the idea is to reduce monthly payment in the end
Mhm.
of a home, right? So the idea is like my monthly mortgage is 1,100, can't afford it, make it 700. And then after a while, for sustainability, fees become added. So that 1,100, that say $300 you just reduced, is now that gap is being shortened through fees, or otherwise could have just been gone towards the mortgage.
Yeah.
So the question that I'm curious about too, in terms of long-term thinking, is, historically speaking, which last 4 years is pretty much debunked, use your word, anything historically speaking, right? Every 6, 7, or 8 years, housing markets go up and they go down. So 2015, somewhere roughly around there, around the valley, 14, 15 houses were 212, 220, and they've gone up. So historically speaking, we're right about that area where the market's going to start going down. Now, if I know historically correctly, again, correct me if I'm wrong, housing markets go up and down, but minimum wage is at $14. So if I'm working McDonald's $16 an hour, that's $30,000 a year. You talk about a loan from a bank, DTI, banks will give you 40, 45, or 50% of your DTI. So if I'm making, that's if you're looking at that, Social Security, for example, averages almost $1,700. So 2 Social Security incomes per household is $3,400. A house is $212,000. That's 44% DTI. So it's right in that range of housing markets go up and down. And the reason I'm wondering about that is I'm wondering creative ways of also looking into the grant monies and subsidies and that kind of stuff. It's like housing land is clear over here. I'm curious about the different avenues, curiosities, research, that kind of stuff that actually supports mortgage fees and insurance fees and all these extra things that are added beyond just the base of the land and or housing, considering that in the next 5, 10 years,
Yeah.
you know, this massive need may not be as massive a need just by natural occurrences. Including the fact the next 3 to 5 years, we're looking at hundreds of homes potentially coming in to the valley, which would then by nature, you know, supply and demand by nature, you know, within 5, 10 years. Historically speaking, you're looking at a rapid drop in housing market and an abundance, not abundance, of much more affordability, and houses on the market. So I'm just kind of wondering, and then of course, you know, it's a risk reward thing. And I think it's back to Council Member Peterson's idea of like, this is just one piece of a greater puzzle.
Exactly.
So I'm just, and then, you know, looking back at that, later on, you're looking to request donations to help support, people with utilities and so on and so forth. And so I'm just kind of looking at seeing what, skin in the game there is, and then financially speaking, looking, you know, when we get the grant, when this goes through, when you buy the house and when you get the land and so on and so forth, by that time, what is our market going to look like and do? And is it as great as a need? Now we have people who otherwise are incentivized. And that's what a little bit of my question about like, who's the qualifying person, you know, who exactly is qualified? So I'm just thinking about incentive and disincentives. And I guess, how do you phrase it? Not buying the cart before the horse, right? And just kind of thinking through, you know, big picture and, you know,
I think,
not buying a car when you need it.
I think
Research and
I
data.
speak as a nonprofit leader in Norma as well. I think every nonprofit organization has to find their ways to fund themselves pretty much through either grants or donations or whatever have you. You know, so that's always gonna be a challenge.
Yeah.
But if you talk to the governor when he came to town a few months ago, he wanted to pour $4 billion into housing. You know, there's gotta be some applications there that we could apply for.
I also just want to clarify
Well,
something.
he's on his way out.
I want to clarify something that the fees. Sorry, a little bit of a distraction back there, but any fees that would be placed on the homeowner would be upfront. And if there were any graduation in those fees, that would also be upfront. Right now, there's not planned to be.
That gap year I was referring to.
Yeah, so when I was speaking to development fees, that's a fee that would be gained at the closing, right? A loan fee would be gained at closing, a developer fee would be gained at closing, and we would be the last people to get paid, quite honestly. If that was the case, membership fees stay the same, and if those membership fees were to change, it would be the membership themselves that would have to vote in that increase. So I guess I just want to re-emphasize that fees for this service don't go up unless the membership vote for them to go up. And then your question about like the market changing, well, the housing market has always like gone up, right? Obviously it crashed, but over the last 100 years, it's graduated. And so the crisis, I don't see it going anywhere. Certainly like things go like spike up and then crash and then continue to graduate. You know, and then the other thing I would say is, I also want to clarify the utility subsidy is not a subsidy that would support individual homeowners. It would be a subsidy for the utility fee and the connection fee for the development itself. So just wanted to clarify that piece as well. And then, yeah, I agree, like there absolutely has to be creative ways to figure out how to sustain this work beyond just fees and grant subsidies. And some community land trusts are doing that by developing, you know, rental apartments or even developing like commercial spaces on their land trust land that could be rented out at market rate. Because
Sorry,
yeah.
I suggest maybe if you have more questions, you might want to get together.
Yeah.
Can I, Mayor Hernandez, could I just add something to respond to the council member's question? So in terms of the fees, what's a little bit different from the community land trust model and from what Common Roots does just from a conventional mortgage is we keep everything so that the payment will be within 33% of the household's monthly income. And that includes the ground lease fee and the monthly maintenance fee that they'll be paying into. And that includes the principals, the taxes, and the insurance as well. So we factor all those costs in to come up with an affordable monthly payment. And like Miles explained, it has to be approved by the membership of the organization to increase those fees. To the other issue that the council member raised about what's happening with building and supply in the Valley. This council did approve the Regional Housing Action Plan, I believe was it 2021, and that lays out how many homes need to be built in the area. Mike, could you correct me? Is it over the next 10 years?
He had to step out. Mike had to step out.
Okay, so that lays out how many homes need to be built, and we're not on pace with what the housing action plan is saying, what the needs are, the housing needs are in the Valley. So as I think to this issue of supply and demand, right now we're not keeping pace with what the demand is. But also even when we look at, once we start to kind of sate the demand, just the price of building homes, like if we go back to one of the first slides, the cost just to build the homes, not even adding on the profit that's made, and that if we're talking about new homes, the price is so high right now, it's so far out of reach for people who have regular paychecks but are earning low incomes.
Yeah, it's about 250 to 300,000, right, to build. Which would mean that you would need to make, in the household, 60,000 to afford that. Which, and that's two people working at McDonald's.
All right, thank you so very much, you guys. We appreciate it. We appreciate you doing this all the time.
Thank you.
And,
Thank
you have College Place of support. Let's see where we can go with it.
Oh, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a good night. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you all. Joy, have a good night. Rachel, have a good night.
Thank you, Mayor Hernandez.
Okay, let's see.
Being a bonnet.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about bees and drugs.
Bees and drugs, that's all
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Someone needs an assistance.
All right. Are we good?
Yes, oh, yes, we're good.
Okay.
We should always ask your lawyer first.
Yeah.
All right, so bees. So how this came to my attention and was we got a complaint from a landowner, property owner who lives in the county, complaining about Hayshaker Farms, the beehives on that property, which is in the city. And her complaint was the bees come over to her property and get water on the pond. And the Hayshaker people are not adequately providing water for their bees. So that there was some behind the ground work, and a promise was made that the city would consider the model beekeeping ordinance and perhaps have it in place this year for when the bees attack. But that kind of didn't happen. And so I got that communicated to me. I don't think we really want to be in the business of regulating these bees. Did our city attorney jump? No, but I'm not gonna throw anyone.
How do we know whose bees are whose?
Well, I mean, that's the point.
That's the
is
point, right?
We're not experts, we don't do it. But
There'll be branding.
right, but the problem with this, the problem that we have right now is the bees that are on the Hayshaker property actually don't comply with our code as it's written. So we kind of have a problem, and that particular beekeeper, his first statement out of his mouth was, "You can't regulate me." So I thought there's gonna be some contention, and so I wanted to bring this to you guys to see if you wanted to modify our ordinance in any way. If you wanted to make it be the model ordinance, do we want to change it so that the Hayshaker farm bees are legal? So what we have now is you can only have 2 hives per lot. And they have more than 2 hives, but their lot is very large. So I don't think there would be a reason to require them to go down to 2 lots other than we have that on the books, or 2 hives, other than we have that on the books. And generally, if we have something on the books and someone complains about it, we would want to at least investigate, make a decision. So looking for guidance if you're fine with the way it is, and we selectively enforce. I just don't know how we could enforce it because we have to hire bee experts to determine what's going on, and we're not going to do that. So
Just a few quick questions.
Sure.
His statement, we can't regulate them.
yes, he claims that because the land's been used as agriculture forever, that it can continue to be used as agriculture without any regulations.
And is that true?
Agriculture doesn't have regulations.
It's true with conditions. And all that law that protects them is, if they are, so here's an example, an apple orchard. It has been an apple orchard forever. Development around the apple orchard residence happens. And the apple orchardist changes to cherries and decides to start using cannons to keep the birds away. That a city could regulate because it's a change that actually impacts the development around. Now, if you had a pig farm and development came around and you wanted to keep the pig farm, you could keep the pig.
Okay.
Whether it's been continuously used as a beekeeping place, I don't think so, but I'm not gonna argue with anyone about it, so. So basically, I'm punting the issue to you guys, to see what you want to do. One quick fix is you can only have enough you can only have the number of hives that, you can safely and healthy bees have, and then it's up for interpretation.
But then again, the temper.
Right,
Are his bees for commercial use?
yes, they are, but we don't think he is required to get a permit to have the bees, which he doesn't have and probably isn't going to get. Based on his position that we can't regulate. What was the second part of the question?
No, I think that was it.
Oh, okay.
Let me say something else in my head.
Yeah. So, and I anticipate that we probably have some beehives in our community, and we have people that might want to do it in the future. I mean, since COVID, people are getting bees and chickens and all that kind of stuff. I think that one way to go about it might not be the model code, but adopt the model code, an exception if we can say the bees are healthy and happy. Basically, she has a pond and he sprinkles to give bees water. And so when he's not sprinkling, she says they come over to her property and she can't really work. But
And even if you had a pond, they would probably go visit both ponds.
yeah, well, and I think there's other beekeepers out there, so, right.
Right. I mean, really, what regulations could we put in place? I mean, it's almost impossible to prove whose is whose and.
Yeah.
And that somebody is not
All
doing
those
something,
impacts.
Right.
You can track them.
you know, so,
I mean, yeah,
you know, I hesitate to put the city in a position where.
no, I agree, I think that something should change so that this Hayshaker Farms can be legal within our code.
Correct.
Cause I don't think there's any discussion that they're, the bees are unhappy there, and they have an incentive to make the bees happy, right? Which is part of why we regulate animals and make sure they're not in pain or.
Right.
But I assume he has every incentive to keep bees well, because he's making money, he sells honey in milk brew water. So,
Councilmember Peterson?
No, it's not okay, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but it's not the amount of water the bees are drinking, but the fact that it's attracting the bees. Is that more of an issue?
I think that's the issue.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I agree with the beekeeper and kind of logic that you can't really tell.
Yeah.
And apparently these are better with water droplets than actual surface water. Yeah, we want to know.
So, you know, what you're saying is to adopt, if I understand, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
To adopt a code. Or we need to change it.
Change it,
With an
we want to
exception.
make it, yes.
Because whenever we get into these things, you'll say, let's ignore it. And not do anything, and then if he's got 20, I don't know what the numbers, let's say he's got 40, you know,
And they're right on the property.
right? So then my next door neighbor that has a lot that's 1/8 the size now can put 40 in, right?
Right,
And so you're talking about eliminating that possibility, but not.
Yeah.
Destroying a livelihood or.
right. I mean, we
yeah,
require to get a permit already, why? So we
Yeah.
can go and look at it and say, yeah,
I like that.
so.
Can we do, or would it make it too complicated if you make a difference between residential, single family residence or residential as opposed to an ag land?
Then you have to tell the bees which property they're on.
No, I mean, as far as how many you can have.
Well, that would be my recommendation, probably just to do area size and not really consider what's what, right? But
I would also say it should be either area size, because when we get into ag, keep in mind, we don't have zoning for ag, because inherently in cities, you aren't really supposed. The whole purpose of cities is really they develop, you have farms out in the county, this is one of those like weird situations now where zoning does allow farms, but I'm just saying inherently when the State Growth Management Act. That's not really the promise of cities.
You get into that issue you had on North Larch then too. don't
Yeah,
you?
yeah.
with the hemp farm,
Yeah.
So then it's,
Okay,
you know.
Yeah.
so we're saying per area size?
that's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking. Or maybe it's just if you have a beehive, you need to go to this association and they need to say it's good.
Yeah.
I don't know.
because- Is there, could we regulate, let's say the size, but your hives have to be so much away from your neighbor's
Yep,
property line?
that's in the model code.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
It is in the model code.
Because that at least,
Yeah,
I mean, that at least maybe will say, you don't hear all the noise, right, maybe or something like that, but there's no stopping a bee from crossing a property line.
and I imagine there's a lot of bees besides his out in that.
Yeah.
So,
you brought that up.
Well, there's the farm.
right, right, yeah, yeah, kind of like parking dog. So anyway, I'll come back with some proposals.
Okay.
How's that sound?
It seems logical to me to adjust the code to make the number of beehives kind of contingent on the size of the property. I have no idea what I could possibly recommend to that. So that would be the way I would lean, but if he's not getting a permit and our code requires it, what kind of, I guess, charge are we giving him for that? Are we turning a blind eye or?
We can cite him for a code violation. And the first, we have everything from a civil infraction up to a gross misdemeanor for violating the code. Normally, first thing is a warning, verbal warning, second is a written warning, third is okay, we're going to.
And how much is the fee? I'm sorry.
I wanna say it's $150 or $100 is our, 50 is our minimum infraction, general infraction.
And how much is the cost of the permit?
$15,
$15.
yeah. And you cannot get this.
Annually or
right here.
One time or annually?
Annually,
I make great friend. City was up.
Councilmember Jessup?
yeah. So if he has been in violation now, I mean, I think we wouldn't be here today, but we want, we want to be able to serve everyone with what they want.
Well, now we're aware he's in violation, that's where here lies the problem.
Right, exactly,
Right. Zero.
yeah.
It's like sewer that's been hooked up for 27 years.
Exactly, now you're made aware of it, Councilmember Jessup?
After having more than 2 cents, I'll just stick with 2 cents on this one. If it doesn't cause harm, it doesn't cause damage,
Someone saying it is though.
may I please suggest that the government doesn't go anywhere near adding more regulation to someone having a commercial or personal substance, food substance?
I mean, that's
Or-
absolutely an option. We can say we're not going to regulate it.
That's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Because you're, boy, that's a
It does,
unintended a whole ball of wax.
Yeah, and one thing that you should consider when you choose to regulate or not regulate is what avenues of relief are out there already. And she can sue him and he could sue her. I mean, there is an avenue if she
Right.
feels that,
So this could come to council for a vote.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess I understand what you're saying. However, if we found out that somebody was stacking used autos, 20 deep, and it's outside of our, I mean, it violates. I know one thing's a food.
That's why it's not,
I'm saying, what I'm saying is, we would want to have government put more,
well, no, not if they're selling it. If they're making income off of the
so they can
twenty-seven
do,
car.
they can do whatever they want in their backyard, even if it violates so on,
It's a law.
There has to be some kind of guidelines.
And I think the reason is.
They have other avenues to, this is.
Well, the reason to regulate is twofold. One is to try to prohibit a nuisance. You're right? Where if they don't take care of their bees, they can be aggressive. If the queen bee is there for more than a year, they get aggressive. It's some bee thing. And then the second is that the bees are happy, because I mean, we don't let, dogs be chained up and things like that. So it's for the happiness of the bees and then for.
Would insurance call this act of God? I get stung by an angry queen bee.
Well,
You have no idea where it comes from, insurance, home insurance, you call it act
We
of
will
God.
research that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's the judge or
Yeah.
jury that.
Well, even though-
Smart.
I noticed there be.
I will come back with some good suggestions. Or
Thank
maybe
you.
I will just call those two up and say, what do you think?
Yeah, just figure it out.
You two.
Tell everybody.
All right. Next, drugs.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Good, yes.
For the next thing?
Okay.
All right,
You should
no.
buy her
All right, Mike,
Let's talk about something a little bit less.
yeah. Okay, Mike asked me to brief you guys on this because some of you might have questions from your public about what's going on with simple possession of drugs. So as you recall, in 2021, the Supreme Court ruled our simple possession of drugs law prohibition unconstitutional. And when I'm talking about simple possession, I'm talking about drugs that are required a prescription, drugs that are on the federal schedule, that type of, so you're thinking like heroin, meth, just kind of take marijuana out of that picture. Unless if you're distributing it or have a grow that you don't have, that's something different. So we're just talking about simple possession. So when that was done, many jurisdictions came forward and passed their own ordinance to fix, to come into compliance with the Supreme Court's decision. And we did that. So we actually have on the books, a simple possession is a gross misdemeanor. Last year, the legislature came out with a fix, and it was only a year-long fix, and it turned simple possession from a felony, a Class C felony, into a gross misdemeanor. And it required law enforcement officers to make 2 referrals to treatment before the officer could charge or arrest and take the person to jail. It's very unworkable. We understand the concept is to get people help, which has always been my practice, as well as I think law enforcement do what they can. But we had no way to track whether any one person had been referred by anyone. So there really, it was ineffective. We couldn't really do anything with it. With the state fix, we still had ours. So they went back, didn't fix it again this year, but went back into special session just to fix it. And unlike a lot of bills that touch on criminal justice, where usually you have a few legislators who are knowledgeable on how the criminal justice system works, and you can come up with a clean bill. We had a very strong contingent of wanting to decriminalize all drugs. A strong contingent that said, no, we need to have the criminal justice avenue in there, hold people accountable, it's a public safety issue. And then you had the stance that we want to help people. We don't want to punish them. We want to give them treatment. So that's kind of what came into the actual fix that we have now. I had an hour-long webinar today with the County Prosecuting Attorneys Association and City Attorneys Association to just talk about this. And there's a lot of questions and a lot of concerns of how it's going to go down. But the gist of it is, simple possession is either a gross misdemeanor or a misdemeanor or a gross misdemeanor. Law enforcement can arrest and can charge in any instance of finding a violation. The prosecuting attorney is encouraged to agree to diversion. With which I do anyway, unless it's obvious that, you know, they've committed other crimes in it or there's history or what, for whatever reason. There is an automatic, if a diversion is ordered by the courts and they comply with treatments, evaluation, or recommendations after a 12-month period, the case is dismissed. If you plead guilty and you go through treatment for 6 months, then the conviction is vacated. You can probably see the problem with that reasoning. It doesn't make sense, but that's what we have. And within that diversion vacation component of the new law is the legislature's spelled out 3 diversion programs. The LEADS program, with that, which I think you guys are familiar with, law enforcement aided diversion, which we do have here. I think there's only a handful in the state. Arrest and jail alternative, which we do have that here as well. It's not as robust, the funding isn't. And then there's the recovery navigator program, which we also have, which is county provided funds. It's not enough. Our leads right now, we're maxed out. We can't get anyone else in there. So these are the 3 avenues that the state decided that we can use for this diversion program and to end up in a dismissal or a vacation of the conviction. It's not going to magically happen. So we're kind of in a weird place. I think the practice that we have now of providing opportunity to get treatment and not continue to commit crimes, we do that already, and that is an avenue. But we're just gonna have to really wait and see what they did allocate funding, but it has to get down to us. Jump in anytime, I'm just kind of stream of consciousness right now, but there was a contingent that wanted the counties to pay for everything. Actually, they wanted the courts to provide transportation to the treatment facilities and do all this stuff, and the court said, this is not what we're here for.
Yeah.
It is really detailed on what the court has to do and probation has to do, which is going to be a hurdle that we're gonna have to go through with our court we have now. I mean, it's going to require a lot of work, and I just don't know at this time.
Track that would be, yeah.
I don't know how that's going to happen. Yeah.
I have a question.
Mhm.
So so what we're doing right now, how does that line up if we know what the city of Walla Walla is doing?
I think they operate very similar.
So I could see a scenario where the 2 forces arrive on a scene and one is saying arrest, the other saying no, I mean, or whatever the scenario would be, and,
Mhm.
you know.
So my experience with Walla Walla is that,
Pretty good.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they kind of have, if I never have to prosecute and convict anyone again, that would be great.
Yeah.
So let's get to that point, right?
You know, it's an odd situation, and I'll just, I mean, you have these variations of illegal drugs, then you have this fentanyl killing people, and whatnot, and so it's kind of, I was just going through the timeline when you find somebody with something, but then they go back out, and you don't know what harm possibly that could be done. And so then you're thinking, well, it's gonna be 2-3 months, I don't know what the time frame is.
No,
And then it goes into a 6-month, maybe if you find room somewhere for.
right,
Wow,
yeah.
and then track that.
Yes, yep, and report. I will say that our treatment providers in our community are stellar.
Yeah, no,
I trust everything that comes out. They're not what you would consider bleeding hearts, but they'll help when they can. And they definitely say no to some people, whether they've been violent or things like that. So I'm really confident in them, but they're just understaffed, overworked, no money.
Yeah.
So if anyone asks, please feel free to refer them to me,
Yeah.
or, say that, yeah, there is a fix, it's geared toward recovery. Talk to your state legislators to fund it. Yeah. Yeah. Zoning money. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it really places a lot on district court and how they're gonna handle it. So I haven't heard anything from them as to whether, what's gonna happen between now and then. But hopefully there's enough people in my position that are gonna advocate for a good program.
That's gonna be tough over here, but yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments on that? No, okay, anything else for good of the order?
I have a question. I always have a question.
Okay. What's your question?
So Mike, after I picked that pump up off the truck and put it in place by myself over the new well.
It goes down in the well. Down top.
It weighs about 4 tons.
Yeah.
Is the pump running? I was there talking to the guys until they were looking at me like, who are you? And then they're waiting for the switch to be flipped. And they're all like,
Yeah, so that motor, they're just testing it right now, but we should be able to fully switch to it. Paying them to hurry up with it work, because we thought we were gonna have to rent our old refurbished motor. It turned out the rewound one got delivered quicker than that one, so we should be fully onto that one by tomorrow, from what I was told. They're just quality checking it right now.
is that motor comparable to any other well motor we have, or are they all unique?
So well number 4, which is over on Pepper's Bridge, you've seen the maps and I have the one. But well number 4 on Pepper's Bridge and the new well over on Whitman and Maple, those have the same motor. Now, well number 3, which is the one that had the rewound one at Larch and Lamperti, that has older stuff in it, because that's now the oldest operating well. So I will say, when we're done with all these like well issues, Robert and I were talking, we do think that's gonna need a larger scale rehab because of several issues, because of us running it so hard. Because during our water crisis last couple of years, we were fully dependent on that one, running it 24/7, and you shouldn't really do that for many years.
And Mike, the finance people will turn inside out, but my thought on that, and in discussing this with some of the nameless employees, would be have a spare motor.
I know that has been discussed, and we actually are gonna do that. Because again, since we have replaced all these wells, we now have standardized equipment where we didn't have that before. Everything was like its own thing, which was weird, so.
So we don't want to spend 40 grand and stick a motor in the corner that we'll never use, but
Better safe than sorry.
Okay,
Anyway.
I have 2 things. Don't forget Thursdays are farmers market here at City Hall. Please come support our vendors. And this Sunday is the Korean War Memorial dedication. Is it on the 25th? I have it on me.
I thought it was.
Is it moved?
That moved because of it was in the newsletters, the follow on, so.
Yeah, I never.
So what is
that supposed calendar date was right. Oh, so it's the 25th?
Let me get the newsletter.
Oh, sorry. I saw it. I just didn't read that one because I thought I really knew. Sorry.
So Reed, how much does a fee drink like on a month? You know?
I should ask that. I'm sure the gentleman that has to be.
I want to know. I'm not in liters. Yeah, if you could.
Yeah.
400 gallons.
I would be like, just give me some honey.
Okay, here we go.
25.
So Sunday, June 25th, 1 p.m.
Okay, June 25th. Okay, so let me change it for you. All right. Thanks, everybody. And Homestead, yeah.
Oh, and then one last thing, Jim, I sent an email out to everyone, but they're having the community meeting for the whole creative district deal. The college place meeting is tomorrow night, 6:30, Lions Club Community Center for folks interested.
If you can make it.
Yeah.
The college place is interested. All right, so there's no other issues. I now conclude the workshop at 7:10 PM.
Thank you.
Just